Hello, you're watching Studio Ken. Make sure you don't miss any episode of Studio Ken by subscribing to the YouTube channel. To subscribe, search for Studio Ken on YouTube, click subscribe on the bottom right of your screen, and set a reminder. You can also watch Studio Ken on Diamond TV on Wednesday at 18:30 and on Saturday at 19 hours. Studio Ken, the home of Kennedy Gondwe on YouTube.
For many people, the prospect of never having children is quite daunting, but some are willing to make that sacrifice to become Roman Catholic priests. For 8 years, Mwamba Peni trained as a priest, having vowed to abstain from sexual relations and never have a family. But something happened. He ended up walking away from the priesthood. This is one conversation you don't want to miss.
My name is Newton Mainza, aka Mbototo Ama Blacks. You're watching Studio Ken. Don't forget to subscribe.
Mwamba Peni, good to have you on Studio Ken.
Thank you so much.
You spent 8 years of your life under the oblate of Mary Immaculate. From that time, you've served in both profit and non-profit organizations. The last posting, as far as I can remember, you served in State House as policy analyst, all of which begs one question. Why on earth did you decide to become a priest?
From the very beginning, you need to understand that I come from a very Catholic background. My grandmother comes from Chilonga Mission. That's my father's mother. One of the earliest priests there, Father Mwamba Kokota, happened to be a canon lawyer, one of the first canon lawyers in Africa. So from the village, when you come out of the house, the next thing that you see is a Catholic church. And I grew up as well as an altar boy. I served as an altar boy from my formative years. I should have joined when I was 7 years old. So the Catholic Church played a very influential role in my upbringing. I have family members who are priests, religious sisters, and others are serving as brothers in different congregations. So coming from that background where the church was like an area for growth for you, an area for social interaction with your friends. Most of the friends that I met them through Altar Boys Club or through church activities. This is what attracted me to say, maybe this is a life that I should try to lead after I complete secondary school.
Was it more because of the influence of your friends and family, or it was a calling from God? Because most people go into priesthood because it's a calling from God.
I think from my early days, like when I was 7, 8 years old, the priests were imposing figures like in a community. They were listened to, respected, and everyone sought them for advice, spiritual advice, and any sort of advice. And then he had also imposing figures like Father Umbeto, Bishop Diong, Bishop Tresfom Pundu, Father Mia, So these are people that influence society in terms of the political landscape in this country. And for me, looking up to them, I was looking at them like role models, and I thought I could be like them. But when you go into secondary school, a lot of things happen there. You have new sets of influencers. You had the people like Remy Mushota when you were growing up. Those are some of the people that we used to look up to. Dini Mongomba, Vincent Malambo, Paul Tembo. So I was to some extent attracted to politics, and I thought maybe I should do some secular studies and end up being a politician, Now, when I went into secondary school, this is when you're deciding what is that I'm going to do with my life, I'm about to complete secondary school. At that stage, I had an encounter with a priest from Mompika. He is late now. May his soul rest in peace. Father Daniel Kashimoto. He was with my cousin, serving in the same parish, which was Kambi Mission. Father Chanda is now a teacher in Lopra province. So they invited me just to go and spend some time with them. That's when I got attracted to the calling, you know. But I didn't know whether to join the diocese of Mpika or to join the diocese of Kasama, Archdiocese of Kasama, Ondola. I had roots in all these places. In grade 11, one of my friends told me about the Oblates of Mary Immaculate. So they have a program which they run for those people that want to join, like where you go for what they call come and see. You spend a week with them to learn about their life and everything. So I happened to go to 9 Ngumbo Road when I was in grade 12. And because of the lifestyle, you know, I met Ron Walker, may so rest in peace. I met a few others who are priests now. The community life, the brotherhood attracted me to them, and I said, I don't want to join any other congregation. I want to be an oblate of Mary Immaculate. And that's why I decided from that moment, I made a decision. I'm not going to apply to 7 or 8. Then whoever picks me, that's where I go now. I made a decision. If this is what God is calling me to do, I'm going to apply. And if they don't pick me, then it's not my call. If they pick me, it's not like you want to be an accountant, you want to be a lawyer, then you apply for 7 universities. Then you choose which one to go to. I decided if they pick me, that's a sign that God has called me to this life. If they don't, I'll do something else.
So give me an idea of a typical day. What would you wake up to? How would your day end? Because most of the times you're only seen on Sundays. So what would you be doing from Monday to Saturday?
On Sunday afternoon, you rest, you know, as a community. Monday usually is a holiday for you, you know. Tuesday, you begin the activities of the week. Like, I'll give an example for me. If I'm preaching on a Sunday, I used to start preparing on a Sunday after Mass. I'll go and look at the reading for next week. Look at the reading for the week, you know. So you prepare in such a way that you pray about it, you do some research on the theological underpinnings of certain scriptural passages, and then how does that relate to the community? So with the community, we have activities, visiting the sick, you know, praying for the sick, taking communion to hospitals or to people that are sick in homes.
Isn't that a boring life?
It's not a boring life at all.
When you compare the two lives, you trained as a priest, you served as a priest, and now you're a family man. Which life is better?
You see, I think for today, there's a dimension that is added to your life. The fact that you can plan your life the way you want it. The life in the seminary was set for you. You woke up at this time, you had breakfast at this time, you had lunch at this time, and then the activities also were set. So right now I know at 14 hours I can't go a priest. Usually after lunch you take a siesta. So you know that at 18 hours, 18:30 they're having evening prayers. You know that in the morning at 7 hours they're having Mass. So everything was set. Today I can wake up and say, I'm going to spend time at home reading. Have the choice to choose. And I think for me, maybe that's what even led to living, to say, look, you've been exposed to so much knowledge. You've been exposed to so many individuals, interactions. At the end of the day, somebody has to choose where you stay. Somebody has to choose what you do every day. So part of the reason was also looking for freedom to make choices. Like, I wake up in the morning, what am I going to do today? You know, but that was one of the reasons that leads to me begin to question whether this vocation was for me or not.
How about the temptation of you having girls around, you breaking the celibacy? Did that also play in your mind?
You know, at that stage, you are very ideological, you know.
So sex doesn't count?
It never mattered at all. Like, from a personal experience, it never mattered in the sense that, you know, for you to spend all that years in training, there's a lot of indoctrination that happens in terms of the way you look at things. Just like preaching is about propaganda. Not propaganda, you're propagating the faith. Not propaganda as in selling false news. No. For you to convince people that every day Sunday you are preaching to them that God does exist and they are coming to church every Sunday, there's a lot that is deposited in you in terms of training and everything.
Are you therefore telling me that as a priest you never got tempted to admire a girl and even maybe sleep with them?
I got tempted.
And what did you do?
Let me tell you a story. This is a very interesting story. My sister died in Ndola, my immediate young sister. So I'd come in to see her before she died and went back to South Africa. The time she died, that's the same time Pope John Paul II died. So it's coming here to see her. And that's the only time I had the greatest temptation as a human being. So I came to see her. I came for the funeral. And I was in Ndola, and found a lot of people that I grew up with. Some of them we served as altar boys together. They were with the family, comforting them and stuff like that. And then there were other people that made sure that I ate. There was water for me. Now, for us, that was normal because that's what people used to do to you wherever you went. So, there was this young lady. I was told she grew up in Ndola. I knew the family, but...
Do you still remember her name?
I've forgotten her name.
Are you sure?
Yes.
Continue, but you are able to remember the story.
Yep, able to remember the story.
Continue with the story.
So, she's one of those people that were there for me. After burial, I left. So she called me when I was at Kapiri, like, you've left. I said, yes, I need to go back to South Africa. I may spend maybe 3 days in Osaka.
How did she get your number?
She had my number.
How?
When I was being picked up at the airport, she's the one who came with my cousin. So I called when I was leaving Osaka. Somebody's coming to pick you up. Here's a number. So that's how. But there was little interaction during the process of the funeral. I was there for about 3 days. So all they did was just make sure that I was comfortable, and they sat with me as a group, So until I came back here, and she says she wanted to talk to me. I said, I'm in Kapiri, going back to Osaka. Okay, call me when you arrive in Osaka. So in the evening I called her, and then she says, no, it's very unfortunate your sister has died. I was hoping that we could sit down and talk. I said, oh, now that I've left, you can still talk. So she says, I was looking at you as a young man, tall, and yeah, whatever. Why would you be a priest? Why can't you leave? We get married and, make a family. So I said, that's a joke of the century. I've never... no one has ever told me, no one has ever suggested something like that before. No, I'm serious, So she kept on pestering me. She kept on calling me. I went to South Africa. She was still calling me, until I realized that the calls were too much. So I spoke to the superior there. I said, look, there's this person that I met. I don't know, they keep on bothering me. Maybe somebody needs to talk to them. So the superior said, do you have anybody in Zambia that can speak to this person? That's how I spoke to Mrs. Pepala. She's my godmother here at Mary Margaret Parish where I was serving. They had a conversation, and that's how this person stopped pestering me.
So how did you know that this person was actually after you other than them?
No, they told me that, you see, like when they were doing all these things, I thought it was like, normal, because we are everywhere you go, priests are saved by the community. So I thought that was the closest thing that during that period, maybe she's right, maybe not. But there was no close contact. I was in South Africa, she was in Zambia. And then after being pestered, and I was mourning after being pestered for a long time, I brought in other people to say, you know what, handle this case, and even with people that have fallen in love, it was always a tradition for you to approach your superiors. You tell them, I'm in this situation.
So why then did you finally decide to leave? Was it a gradual process or something happened that pushed you away completely?
It's a gradual process. I was here for quite some time in Lusaka. I went to do my novitiate in Namibia, where I made my first vows at St. Mary's Cathedral in Windhoek. Then from there, I went to do my philosophical studies in South Africa. So I got a bachelor's degree in philosophy from there. Then I went to Kalabo to do internship. Like, you are now taken into the mission, So at that time, the current bishop of Livingstone, actually, Bishop Valentine Kalumba, was my supervisor in the internship. So Father Chiso, Patrick Chiso, was the parish priest and director for the mission, and Bishop Valentine Kalumba now was the one to journey with you, to initiate you into religious life. So I had a very wonderful experience in Kalabo, learned the language, We are running about 68 outstation from Naliona mission. So we would go into the bush sometimes on Wednesday, come back on Sunday. That time there was no network. So whenever you got stuck in the sand, sometimes you had to go on an anthill, find some network or get some people around to help you out. And how we used to know, if somebody didn't arrive Sunday 18 hours, there's something, so you follow. Because there was no, the network was only in few areas. Now, I think communication has improved. So, after living there for a year, I went back to South Africa for further studies. And when I arrived there, I just felt different.
How different?
I felt not at home. That's a place I lived for the longest time. I just felt something different. Maybe the dynamics has changed. I was a missionary in Kalabo, working as a missionary, making a decision with the rest of the members of the community. I went back as a student. So the dynamics had changed, Then I started...
But that one would say shouldn't have influenced you so much, because it was a calling from God that you were responding to. So the dynamics changing shouldn't have an influence on you deciding to walk away.
Yes. I didn't walk away right away. So I started now to... because, you see, training is a continuous discernment. You discern whether God is calling you. It's a discernment that you undergo every day or every minute of every day. So I began to ask myself, is this a telltale sign that I should not be here? So I spent that whole year discerning. One of the priests that I was very close to, and I was very tired, I drained, I didn't have a lot of energy during the entire period.
For a young man like you, losing energy, someone would say, why did you lose that energy for you to continue with your priesthood?
I think I also had an intellectual revolution in the sense that philosophy of religion challenges your faith. I can say, I don't know at that time whether I was an atheist or I was an agnostic, but still in the seminary. I began to question so many things.
Including the existence of God.
Including the existence of God. So, now the question that you ask yourself is, why should the church take such a risk to expose you to people like Martin Buber, Martin Heidegger, Soren Kierkegaard, Paul John Sartre? These are philosophers of religion that attack the notion that God does exist. They look at Christianity as an insurance policy. There's a big, there's something that we are scared of. So to compensate for that, we create God in our own image and likeness to say there's a God somewhere. So you are going through that process and they are making sense. So in terms of my spiritual life also, that was the greatest dry period. Then I began to read about how John Paul II experienced the same as a pope. You know, Mother Teresa, who was comforted by the writings of Saint Teresa of Avila, the dark nights of the soul. Mother Teresa spoke about not feeling the presence of God, you know, in so many situations. Now, if you look at Mother Teresa, everyone looks at her as a saint, you know, and if this person can feel that God is very far from where she is, who am I? As a simple man, I'm not even a saint, not even closer to that.
Quite philosophical there. Let me just cut in. Maybe that's what leads to people speculating that those of you that leave the priesthood, and given how well read you are sounding, don't end up looking like normal people, or they don't behave normally. Is there something that happens when you leave the priesthood?
There's nothing that happens when you leave the priesthood. Maybe the question we need to ask ourselves is, why do some people leave, or why they are advised to leave? It could be the same reason that they look like there's a loose nut in their head that they asked to leave. Because you see, we need to understand that priesthood is about constant observation of your behavior and your responses to things. Are you growing or not? So this year, that's why for me, there's a difference between somebody who has been in the seminary and somebody who went to any university. The university, they'll teach you just academics. There's no element of etiquette taught in universities. There's no element of social interaction, social behavior, how you behave. I'll give an example. Like when you are visitors, you know, they used to observe whether you are being hospitable to your visitors.
All that you are taught.
All that, yes, all that you are taught, how to treat visitors. If you come in, you ask, can I offer you a bottle of water? Can I offer you, would like to have something to eat? You go, if it's a sandwich, you go and prepare. You bring to your visitor, you know. How you interact. Even when you're eating in table manners, I know somebody was kicked out that for years, he never thought of the guys, people are coming behind him. So when you're dishing, what is on your plate?
It would get that serious where when you break one of those rules, you get kicked out.
Not like it's a one-off thing. I'm talking about constant, repeated occurrence of the same thing. After 5 years, they will tell you, you know what, and you think more of yourself than others. So you cannot be a priest.
But the question still remains. Do people that leave priesthood behave normally? Are you normal people? Do you consider yourself as a normal person?
Normal. I'm a very normal human being, a very responsible human being, and I'm glad for the experience that I had in the seminary. Like I said, some people are advised to leave for the same reason that maybe there's something something wrong with them. And then one thing that you need to understand is, I think for me, the formation for priesthood begins at home. Because you spend, for the diocese, they spend about 7 years, you know, in the seminary, doing academic training. But you spent 18 years at home with your family. So, is your family Christian enough that when you're growing up, there are certain values that are inculcated in you to the extent that when you go there, it's just a continuous process? You know, that's why there are certain things that they do there to help those who are coming from broken homes, to help those who are coming from bad experiences. Like you are also allowed to, or psychological therapy is imposed on you.
So are you telling me that for all the 8 years that you spent, you never had sex?
I never had sex. I'd never had a girlfriend.
God is watching you.
I'd never had sex. I'd never had a girlfriend.
Now you have?
I'm a family man.
Okay. How easy was it for you to finally walk away?
It was not easy. I spent that whole year, you know, discerning. Then I requested after the exams to come back and do a 3rd-day retreat with the Jesuits. So I went to the Jesuits novitiate in Long Airport Road. I was there for 30 days. On the 18th day, it was very clear for me that I should leave. And you see, these are ignition prayers, you know, that were done by St. Ignatius, the founder of the Jesuits. You do a lot of reflection. You meet your retreat director twice a day, in the morning and in the evening, just to share experience. The rest of the time you're praying, you're reading the scripture, reflecting alone. So on the 18th day, after being locked up for 18 days, I went to him and I said, it's done, I'm gone.
How did you ask your bosses to release you from the seminary?
Okay. So 18 days, I made a decision that I'm going to leave. So they asked me, do you want to go now since you've made a decision? I said no. I waited until the last day. So I was thinking what to do next and stuff like that, you know. Then I didn't go home. I didn't break the news to the superiors that I was leaving. I went to South Africa. There was a friend of mine from Nigeria who had applied at the University of KwaZulu-Natal to do his honors degree. So I said, there's still chance for you to come and apply. So I went to apply for school. And then because I was studying within their system, they accepted me before I could even come back. I had an acceptance letter, you know. So I came back, went home, told my family that I'm going to leave, you know. Then I came back to Lusaka. At the time, all seminarians were supposed to go back to South Africa. That time, the current bishop of Mongo was my director of formation, Bishop Evans Nyemba. So I went to his room at night, and I said, Father, following my reflection during my retreat, I decided to leave the congregation, and I'm going back to South Africa to have been accepted at the university to do my honors degree in policy and European studies. And that I'd informed my family. We had spoken at the family level, and that time it was just time for me to address my congregation. It was very gutted because the ticket was already bought, and I was like now nearing towards making now final vows. So like you vow now chastity, celibacy, perseverance for life. I was now entering that process, you know. So I left that night. An uncle of mine picked me up, and I had never been so afraid and alone in my life, like for a longest period, you know. I just felt like there was something that had died within me, you know. I was used to this life for 8 years. All my friends were from here. Now I was alone. So when I went to sleep, I drafted a letter to inform, an email to inform my friends, and I sent. One of the priests who was studying there, you are from the media, maybe you know him, Father Freeborn Kibombo, called me and gave me some encouragement, you know. Then there's another priest who died a few years ago. May he so rest in peace, Father Kennedy Katongoso, called me just to encourage me. So I escorted my friends when they were going back, and it was like, I could feel, I said, maybe I should just go back and apologize that I wasn't thinking straight, you know. But the encouragement that I got from these other priests, I said, no, you've made a decision. See how best you can turn your life around. So I didn't have money to, first of all, to pay for school. I was in the seminary for 8 years. The circumstances like around my family, my immediate family had changed from the time I left, you know. From the time I entered the seminary up to the time that I came back, you know. So I spoke to a few cousins for help. I'm like, okay, I'll try to get a scholarship. So one day, I was, one of my aunties, Aunt Monty Tembo, called me. They used to live near Arakan Barracks there. Went to see her. She says she wanted the son to go to school in South Africa. So we spoke, and as we were going to South African embassy, the late President Michael Sata, who happens to be a relative of my grandfather, calls me and says, I've heard that you have left the seminary. Can we talk?
My name is Newton Mainza, aka Mbototo Ama Blacks. You're watching Studio Ken. Don't forget to subscribe.